Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, I can hear you.
I want to let everyone know I appreciate all the presentations that happened earlier today. They were super, but I know I'm able to add that ice cream and the cherry on the top of this presentation. So please hold and be patient. My slides load in. Everyone, thank you so much for waiting till the end. I've been sending prompts to you throughout the whole conference with little tidbits of information that we're going to cover today. So I am your last speaker for this wonderful conference, and I am so grateful to have the opportunity to present to you. And I'm grateful to some of my friends who have actually made it possible for me to find your chapter. So we are going to talk about sustainability. So what I'd like for you to do, I'm not going to be watching the chat, but I'd like for you to get engaged in the chat and send some comments and discussions so we can know exactly your level of expertise in this area. So how many people know about sustainability? Just put it in the chat that you have a lot of experience, a little, or absolutely no experience at all. Okay. So I guess I'm going to leave it up to you to sort of ping me and just or stop me if there's something that really comes up that's critical based on what I'm talking about. But I want people to sort of feed off of each other's energy. So what we're going to be covering today is sustainability. I'm going to help you to build a sustainability policy, and we're going to do that around COVID. Okay, this is a topic that we can never really get enough information because we can never be too safe. We should never let our guard down in this area. We're going to review the strengths and weaknesses of sustainability. We're going to document some of the roles that you have on your job and look at an impact assessment and compare how that work actually aligns with sustainability. So when I look at sustainability, I think of it as project management on steroids. We're not only looking at the time, cost, scope. We're not only looking at the knowledge areas and the processes, but we're also looking at how is this going to make sure that the deliverable, that the benefit, the end result is something that's positive, that you're not going to have a project that now creates more projects because you want to have more money in your wallet or in your bank account. Okay, so we're going to cover areas such as ethics, a lot of different topics that maybe you have forgotten about because of all the years of service that you've done in project management. And talking about years of service, I did not have 40 years of service, but I would sure love to have that. Some of the previous speakers actually claimed 40 years. That's awesome. So let's move forward. I have a lot of information, links, reading resources. So I think you're going to be very pleased with this presentation. I live in Massachusetts. I'm Elaine Jackson. I have my PMP, and I'm also certified in Green Project Management, which is the sustainability certification through greenprojectmanagement.org. I do PMP coaching, presentations on sustainability as well as project management. I have a blog talk radio show, so if any of you would like for me to interview you and give you the link, you can use it on your social media site. I love doing interviews, and most people say they're nervous, and when they get on there, they're like pros. So consider having an interview by Holistic PMC. So the basis of sustainability, you're looking to be a change agent, okay, an agent for change. You want to look at ways to address what's really going on, what has been done right, and then looking at how we care about our environment, our people, our resources, our government, even our laws. So when you study the PMBOK, there's little snippets of information that hits on sustainability, but it doesn't really go in as deep as we do when we study sustainability. There are masters in sustainability, there are certification programs in sustainability. So there's a wide, the world is like open wide for you to apply whatever you do to sustainability. So sustainability is really looking at how do we consume the resource. How are we consuming the resources at the rate that we produce it and the rate that we replace it? So a key example, when you go out to dinner, sometimes you want salmon. everybody, well, most people love salmon that like fish. But there are certain times of the year that you cannot get salmon because to fish out all of that fish out of the sea, and then you go to the restaurant, you want salmon. Well, there's no more salmon right now because they've all been hunted and gathered and eaten. So the thing is looking at the rate of which you consume and use resources. So let's talk. So, Agnes, was there any comments about the rate at which people believe that they know sustainability, or is everyone saying they have no knowledge?
Most people said a little experience to almost none.
Okay. Well, they're going to have quite a bit in the next 45 minutes. So let's look at this example of the BP Macondo well. This was out in the southeast, and this is where an explosion took place because of an issue with a well. Okay, and you have these oil rigs. And when the oil rig had an issue, what happened was when the oil rig had an issue, someone did not address the risk. They didn't address the concern. And so what happened was you ended up with a lot of loss of life and a very big bill. So let's take a look. The cost of good sustainability. So when you study PMP, right, when we all study, we looked at the cost of quality, good quality, and bad quality. It's the same thing with sustainability. You want to plan in advance to have good quality. You want to plan in advance to make sure that you have the things done right so that you have a lower bill. So as you can see, testing, planning, risk response plans related to having a cost of $20 million. So you may say, well, that's a really high price, but not planning properly. Look what else happened, right? There was a lot of issues with not accountability, people not giving the information, passing along the information of what was happening in the beginning, trying to patch it up, hide the information from management. And so this is what you ended up with: 11 people dead, 17 injured, low employee morale, and a bill of $55 billion, way far and much higher than $20 million. So let's see. I know right now you guys are thinking about eating, okay? So I'm going to rush through this presentation, but I want you to get the urgency of what I'm talking about today. This is really, really, really important, not only for you, but also for your family, your children, and generations to come. So pizza. Everybody knows in some part of the world that something they cook looks like this, right? And so when you order a pizza, what do you think about when you think about that process? Put it in the chat. Do you think about just getting the pizza as quickly as you can to your home? Do you think about how quickly you can get the food because you're hungry? Or do you think about, are the people you're doing business with sustainable? So make sure you put those answers in the chat so that you can see what other people in the room are thinking about. So when we look at a process map related to something as simple as pizza, you may say, well, we don't need all this. I just want the pizza. Well, what if the person that you're buying the pizza from actually brought the flour from a provider that actually was doing unfair labor practices, that they had migrant workers, illegal workers working and living in unsafe conditions and traveling and working in the fields to harvest the wheat? What if the supply chain, there was some corruption at the top level in the supply chain where you actually get your materials from? And how about the trucks that drive to deliver the pizza dough or the flour to you? Were those trucks sustainable, or were they adding a lot of toxic fumes? So some of these trucks need to be regularly managed or serviced, or else they start to give a lot of toxic waste into the air. So do you know if that company is sustainable? Companies that are sustainable like to work and sort of intermarry with other companies that are sustainable. And the reason for that is that then you know, okay, we're doing the right thing. We're spending extra money to be sustainable. So we want to make sure everybody else along that whole line that we deal with are sustainable. Even as far as plastic, you're doing in-house eating, in-house dining, or are you doing takeout? Are the boxes sustainable? Will they decompose in the landfill, or will they actually not decompose because the company used the ink that will not degrade? So now that ink stays in the landfill wherever that boxes is thrown, and then it now causes a toxic leakage or toxic waste. Okay, so are you guys getting it? You're getting an idea of where this conversation is going? Put it in the chat. Yes, no, maybe. Just make sure that you're engaging. Here are some case studies. These links all open for great information. Do have some information on like the COVID-19 detection in wastewater. That really is a really big, because instead of testing everybody in, let's say, Boston, which would be totally huge test, to have everybody lined up, queued at all the hospitals, they're now testing the wastewater. And when they test wastewater and they find high detection of COVID-19, they can now target neighborhoods rather than the whole town or the whole state. And so you're looking at ways to be more efficient. And that's what you're doing too when you're doing sustainability, is to try to do things in a way that saves time, saves on money, but the end result is so positive that it's a done deal. It's not that you have to then go and do rework and then bill out for more projects. So here, what are some of the processes for your work? I'd like for you to start thinking of some of the work that you do. Where in your work are you finding that there's some bottlenecks, some problems, areas that cause the most problems for you? Did you pick an area that caused headaches? Think about it. Are some of those areas crossing over between work and home? Or was this an area that maybe led to an embarrassment? Sometimes you do something at work and people tend to laugh at the stupidest things, you know? And so maybe you made a little snafu, or you said something wrong, or you used the wrong word, or you came in with the wrong report, you know, and something that's simple that could just have been forgiven, but somebody keeps bringing it up. You know, like in families when they bring things up at the Thanksgiving dinner table every year after year. So the thing is, we need to look at those areas where you keep getting stuck, because many times that's the one area that you really need to work on. What I'd like you to do is to tag your concerns. Tag your concerns. Is it related to risk? Is it related to communication? Is it related to governance? Especially within work, are you working within the confines of what your company sees as part of their strategic goal? Are you being ethical? Or is some higher members on your team not ethical, but you prefer to keep your mouth shut, keep your job, keep your money coming in so you can pay your salary, or get your salary and pay for your mortgage, or pay for the new car, or send your kids to Harvard, or any place else, or any other thing you'd like to do. So it's important to know the problems that you keep having. It's going to hit up a couple of areas that we're going to discuss now related to sustainability. And don't forget, gender equality. I don't know the demographics of everybody who's on the call, and I'm assuming this call will be available worldwide. But just so you know, there are areas still in the world where women are not allowed to go to school, that women are subjected to female genital mutilation. And so we may think, okay, we get a nice car, this and that, but we don't have those issues. Like in Massachusetts, that's not something that we would ever think could happen. But in other parts of the world, it's important for us to realize that people are still being suppressed. Look at aligning with sustainability. Some of you may be thinking, and it's not anything to do with being in a privileged class or a particular race or religion or anything like that. You just may be thinking, why should I care? I'm not going to be around in the next 200 years or 100 years for that. So why should I spend all the time? Because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. The world was left great for us. Now we need to make sure we're leaving the world, the planet, in a better place for those coming after us. Okay, so we're looking at reducing emissions, reducing carbon footprints, and reducing the CO2 level. Now, I know you got rid of the underarm sprays on your arm. You know, I don't think I see those in the store anymore. So, maybe by default, you're not using those. But the bottom line, it's going to take more than putting paper and plastic in two bins. It's going to take more than putting plastic forks or using glass or It's a combination of a lot of different activities. And I'll cover some of those today, but with the limited time we have, definitely if you need some resources, I have tons of resources. If you need to know some books that you need to read, or you want some additional information, just put it in the chat and I will capture that the next time or when they send me the list of the chat. So greenhouse gas effect, okay? The greenhouse effect, we all understand this as to be that around the world is sphere, okay? There's this sphere of atmosphere around the earth. When the sun heat get raised, when we're closest to the sun, well, the temperature of the earth gets much warmer. And so what happens is we're doing our little old thing down here, eating meat every day. So when you eat meat, not to be gross or anything before your dinner, but you do have to go to the ladies' room or men's room at some point during those 24-hour periods. That all of that waste from humans and from animals is building up. More people are eating meat, more people eating a lot of meat, okay? So if we would take 1 week and have no meat, that would have a significant effect on the CO2 level, okay? And you may say, well, that's so gross, but the bottom line is it starts at even some lower levels, as something as well as just drinking water or using a cup that you recycle instead of taking plastic cups and straws and things that only end up in the middle of the sea somewhere, rolling around where the animals actually end up eating or getting trapped in it and dying. So it's important for us to look at sustainability from all angles. I put here a link for you where you can actually get some information from NASA on what's going on with global warming. And I know, as a project manager, I did look at this presentation to a couple of PMI chapters. And once you give out these links, people are so keen to want to see more and to explore more and to see, really to test their own level of knowledge. So let's look at this graph. As you can see, China and India are showing an uptake. An uptake meaning that they're showing more CO2 emissions. Why do you think that is? Put it in the chat. Why do you think that as time has gone on, everybody's going up a little bit, but here you see U.S. and European nations, they're coming down. They're taking somewhat of a downward trend. It would be nice if they went all the way down, but at the bottom line, they're not. But these other two, China and India, are going up. Agnes, what are you seeing in the chat? Or did people check out and go home?
We outsource our manufacturing to China, cutting down forests. It's industrialization, increased use of cars, lots of use of coal in China, and also the methods, something around the manufacturing methods that they are using.
Good. Very good. I was afraid you would just tell me because there were more people there than in other parts of the world. So I see that you guys do have some knowledge of what's going on in the world. And because when you have more money and more disposable income or more access to income, you tend to do things like some of the more developed nations, which is create more waste. And so it's important that every place on Earth, even if you have even if they only measure being the lowest of the countries that emit CO2, we want to make sure that everybody plays their part. Okay? Thank you so much, Agnes.
Sure. Elaine, while you have these carbon dioxide emissions slide, there is actually an interesting question here. Do you have any information on the environmental impact of reduced traffic patterns due to, COVID-19 closures, less transportation, less moving around?
So you're asking if I have, based on, you said something about cars. Say that again.
I am asking this is actually from Terry Hyman. She's asking, do you have any information on the environmental impact of reduced traffic patterns due to COVID-19 and, you have less transportation going on, less use of cars going on because of the lockdown? Any information? How did we do?
No, I did not. I do have quite a bit of COVID stuff, but no, nothing on because of people staying home that there would be less. But I do know that they did a like a photo op from outer space. They had one of the satellites do a photo op, and you could see Earth was clear. The atmosphere around the Earth was clear, where before it was always hazy and cloudy, filled with, emissions in the air. And so, but let me capture that, and if that person wants that information, I can research it for them. There's going to be a lot of links at the end, but if you want me to gather that information for you, just send me an email, Elaine Jackson, ElaineJackson999@gmail.com. At the end, I'll have all of my contact information. Oh, by the way, I have about 11,000 contacts on LinkedIn, so if you're looking to connect with people, I'm the person to connect with. Okay. Any other questions, Agnes?
No, that's it so far.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to move along. So as a project manager, right, we're always looking at what's going on with the project, what's the status of the project, how's the project progressing, are we meeting our deadline, are we at the point where we can actually claim that we've successfully delivered the project. But what happens after that? And I'm not necessarily talking operations, but I'm talking about, did that project deliver a product that could last a reasonable amount of time? Now, I've seen, and I don't know if it's me, but I'm seeing that when we buy things now, these items, products, cars, furniture, laptops, these things don't last forever. Years ago, we would buy items and it would last till we actually had to throw it away because we're so fed up having them. We're now seeing things have a very shorter lifespan. And so when we're talking about projects, we want to turn around and look at sustainability from the point of view is, are we giving the customer the most value for what they're paying? And if they can't afford to pay for a sustainable solution, it would not make sense to say, well, you're doing it, but it's only going to be half. It really doesn't do anyone that good. So you want to turn around and look way forward. You're still looking at the project, but you want to look way forward and say, are we still on course for delivering the benefits that the project needs? Okay. So here are some of the obvious damages, right? Put in the chat some things in here that you see listed that is important to you. If it's not here, then maybe list some other things that are important. I know for me, I'm seeing more children with allergies. An allergy to peanut butter. Peanut butter was the number one thing that children would always consume. That's the one meal any kid came over your house with peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now you've got to ask them what allergies, and then they tell you they have allergies to wheat. And the kids know, and that's interesting. Look at the new diseases, right? And that's basically because we as humans are not being responsible for our behaviors, and we're allowing crossover of diseases, whether it's from animals to humans or we're not taking care of the environment. How about earthquakes? We're getting tsunamis. I mean, all of these things are indicators that we need to be better about how we treat our planet. Some people may say, well, I'll have enough money to go to Mars. Well, good luck. I'm not sure that's going to be happening in the next 5 years. So whatever anyone says, I don't believe that it's going to happen right away. And who can afford to go? That's what you need to look at. So, Agnes, what are they putting in the chat that's important to them?
Okay, so there was some interesting comment from Susan here. There is so much conflicting information around sustainability issues. Oops, hang on a sec.
Yeah, but
the correct choices. Yeah, sorry, because the chat is very busy, and so I am losing the questions really quickly. So there is so much conflicting information around sustainability issues and the correct choices to make to actually be green. How does one navigate this? How do we navigate the choices, the correct choices to make?
I'm going to open up the whole book of what sustainability covers. So we look at a concept called P5. And from there, you shouldn't just say, well, I'm going to do everything. You can't do everything, but do what's important to you and your family. And that's what I would suggest is that, instead of saying I'll do nothing, there's so much to do, I won't do anything. If everyone did their little part, how we have the Earth Day and everybody goes around on Earth Day and pick up trash in the park and this and that. It would be great if every other Wednesday was an Earth Day. Or maybe we wouldn't have to have an Earth Day if no one threw things out their car as they were driving down the highway. I find it amazing, the cans and bottles and bags and everything. They don't just fly out of the cars. People actually just throw them out the door.
Mhm.
So, but I'm going to share with you some other areas that will help you streamline where it is that you'd like to maybe be helpful in doing something in your neighborhood or in your town.
Mhm.
So we're going to be talking a little bit. Did you say something, Agnes?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay. So we're going to be really talking a little bit about COVID. And Agnes, if you could give me, like, when I have 20 minutes left or something, I'm probably at that right now. But anyway, so then I know how to try to navigate my time.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to, great. So we're going to talk about COVID-19 because it's important. And we're going to look at how we're going to align that to the P5. So first I'm going to tell you about, a little bit about sustainability related to these 5 areas, which we call P5: people, planet, profit, process, and product. So I aligned the P5 according to, like, the 5 process groups or areas related to project management. So I wanted to make sure you had a way of seeing, well, how does this compare? And so I did the research from my materials and just wanted to make sure that you could see. So you guys can look in the column that talks about project management. And I'm going to sort of pick some key areas for, like, the P5 on people. We're looking at the society of human rights, right? PMISSC doesn't talk about human rights. How many times have people's human rights been violated, or are we no longer human? Okay? How about discrimination, labor laws? That's important. There have been standards set by the United Nations, global compacts, right, to take care of, to make sure these things were addressed. How about for our planet? Our planet is not safe and clear the way it is because this is like God's way, God's plan. We have actually followed certain things of making sure environments in your office, like where you're building, they have codes. You go in the elevator. How many of you have ever gone in an elevator and looked and see, was the section up to date and is the elevator safe? We trust so many processes that it's really scary to think that, if something were to fail, it would be really devastating. We're looking at profit, the economic value added. How much profit do you really need, or what is your bottom line? Process, looking at governance and societal, employment, health and safety. Even when we look at product, we're looking at the anti-corruption and anti-bribery laws. Let's again look at the applicability, right? For people, sometimes there's disrespect of your coworkers. I've worked 14, 15 years in corporate America. I have seen it. And people don't complain. They don't go and call police or anything. They see the abuse happen, and everybody goes back to their office quietly and sits there like little children hoping that their turn doesn't come. That is really very wrong. So when you look at the areas that afflict people, maybe even working long hours with no break. I have had many clients tell me that they have had to have hysterectomies because they abuse their bodies by going to work and not eating, or not eating for the day, or not drinking water so they didn't have to urinate, and bladder problems. Okay, we're looking at the planet. Sorry if I got disconnected for a second. Look at the planet. Asbestos contamination. Remember, we had that as a concern. That the asbestos in the schools, we had to add it all removed. How about the coal miners? The coal miners had issues where they would go down into the mines and they ended up with black lung disease. Profit. Okay, how many times that people are not getting what they should in terms of the profit because they're not having the checks and balances probably aligned. Labor laws, a process. Labor laws are lax. They lack enforcement. And then when you look at products, sometimes there's problems with scams, like the Bernie Madoff scam, right? Banking investment scam. He got caught, but how many others are out there that have not been caught? So what I'd like you to do is to think about this exercise. You pick a piece of the project that you are doing that seems to repeatedly give you some concern. Now you're going to look at where are those gaps. When you turn and look back at what we covered, people, planet, profit, process, even the product area, where are those areas crossing over? Where do you feel that you need to get more support or more help? Or that you need to find, what information is there? Not knowing what's out there is also a problem. Okay? And I mentioned here bullying on the team. Why would I mention that? Because I've lived through it. Paying wages. I was not the bully. Okay, but please. Even no matter what people say on LinkedIn, I was not the bully. Unfair wages for women. Sometimes people are paid unfair wages because when the company has the budget to pay people properly, but they choose not to. So what I like for you to do, you don't need to do it right now, but start to think about ways where those P5 areas may be adding to violations on your project. What are the details? How is it crossing over into ethics? How do you see this as the problem? So you may be thinking, as one of my previous students would say, well, who's making the rules? I can do whatever I want. I'm American. Well, no, you can't do whatever you want because you're American. There are laws, right? The International Organization of Standardization, right? The ISO, remember, we studied this. There's an ISO for project management, 21500, for social responsibility, 2600. So the bottom line is we need to follow these standards that have been set in order to have consistency. Because when people start doing their own thing, creating their own process, just like when they had smallpox, and then some people were not following the protocol, many children died. Okay, so it's important to know that when there's time for vaccinations, these processes have to be followed to the T. Those of you that work in medical device and clinical trials know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like a recipe. You can't just leave out a cup of this and a cup of that. Okay? I put some links here for you. These are not hyperlinks, but you can definitely look it up. Some more world governing organizations. So some of you younger individuals may not. This is like fourth to sixth grade history, American history. Because I see it and I'm like, wow, I know I didn't want to remember that, but yeah, this is coming back from your history. So go back and read some of it, and you can see the Declaration of Human Rights. When they get together at the UN, they have discussions and they talk about things that are happening worldwide. Now, some things they should be talking about, they fall lower on the totem pole, unfortunately. But this is where the governing bodies of information comes from. So it would be to your advantage to have this as information you can sort of toss out in a meeting once in a while. So looking at the United Nations Global Compact, there was a call really to align the strategies with the principles related to human rights, labor, environment, anti-corruption. So it's important to know that there's a governing agency that looks over that, but sometimes they can't do it all. We all have to do our part. Okay, so Millennium Development Goals, which is what we called before, now it's Sustainability Development Goals. And these goals was to really set to try and reduce the spread of HIV/AIDS and to try to reduce hunger and poverty in the world. Because that's the number one reason why people don't thrive. If they don't have the proper food, and they don't have food and they don't have clothing, then they obviously not going to go to school. Like I said before, in some parts of the world, there are some people that are still not able to go to school. This is a great document to review. And so what I did for you is I hyperlinked all of the areas: no poverty, zero hunger. So take a look at these areas for the Sustainability Development Goals. And what areas are important to you? the person that posted the question earlier, I don't remember her name, but do you see anything on here that sticks out as something that's important to you? I mean, life below the sea. I, I mean, that's important. But for me, I think if I wanted to do something to help, I would want to do something around world peace, about hunger and poverty and water. I would love to go someplace and work with people from that area and provide funding and resources to get clean water to the area, more than to go and work and save the whales. I mean, I see whales in Massachusetts when we go out every summer. So, but the point that I'm making is you have to find something that pulls at your heart. And if nothing here pulls at your heart, you probably need a talking to. That's all I can say. So I put an exercise here that you can do also at home on your own, is to align the issues that you have with some of these and then start some discussion, either with your coach, you should have a coach, or mentor, or maybe use this as a working exercise for your team to say, why don't we create a day of relaxation where we don't do any work, but we actually learn about each other's goals and for the world peace, where you're looking to try and see how the city could be more sustainable, climate change, understanding what's going on in the land in terms of maybe you're building data centers, or maybe you're building a new home, and you picked, I like that spot over there, but the contractor told you that spot would be a problem. So you're getting the picture yet, and I'm hoping that you are. So here are some of the problems for discussion today, right? Pandemic, Hurricane Katrina, that was pretty bad. Methane gas, people are migrating. They're migrating because now they're migrating back to the city because they want to be in the buildings rather than out 2 hours, 3 hours out from their jobs. So people are starting to migrate more towards the city. Plastic bottles, there's tons of plastic in the sea, as I said earlier. You want to try and reduce the amount of plastic that you're returning into the trash, reusing some of those containers, or stop buying more and more containers. This really is a sad picture. There's two young boys playing, and and children will be children, but if this were my kid, I would be like horrified. Just the thought of them in that dirty water with all of that trash. But this brings home, you should think what your feeling was when you saw this. What did you feel deep down? Did you cringe? Did you feel like pulling them out of there? Some of the solutions are smart cities. These are areas where you can actually go for jobs. These are areas where you can find opportunities to soar and transition from project management and use what you have in project management to take it to the next level. I'm not encouraging any of you to leave your jobs, but this is definitely the way to go. This pandemic is just the start of some of the things that we're going to see down the road. And if we are not very careful, as supposed to be the more educated beings on this planet, we're going to have major problems. So we can start by plan tuning. Who knows about plan tuning? Anyone say yes? I bet you they don't. Probably one guy knows what it is. Anybody?
No comments so far on that one.
Okay, so plan tuning is when the trucks line up, and we're now using autonomous trucks. They're driving with no one in it, right? The trucks line up one behind another. The first one takes the hit because it's going through the wind, but the others have smooth sailing, so they actually consume or use less energy. They use less gas. So they stack the trucks one behind another, and then they all follow down behind one another to get to their destination. So they're finding that helps to save on fuel until some knucklehead cuts in front of the truck, which could be a problem. A meat-free day, talked about it earlier. Masdar City, they have the streets are underneath the city. There's no driving, and this is in the Middle East. There's no driving up above on the ground. Everything is underneath and the buildings are outfitted to reflect the heat from the sun. The windows are tinted in a way that it reflects the heat away from the building. Plant systems are built on top of buildings to actually cool the building. So people are doing things to try and be more sustainable. I put this here as just an additional, in case somebody's just not getting it. I think one thing you can look at for vacations, right? So, of course, everybody turns their head and looks. So, when you go on vacation, do you use all the towels in the bathroom every single time you take it, use it once, throw it on the floor? At home, I am sure you hang up those towels because it's quite costly to keep running the dryer and washing the towels only after one use. So that's some hotels are being sustainable. So that's really an extreme. I've been at hotels where they say, do you mind not putting the towels on the floor, use them twice or something? So I said, okay, I can do that. So it's doing little things. Okay, so let's get into some sustainability discussions. I'd like for us to build a sustainability policy. So let's look at a sustainability policy for when, let me see. I have something on the next slide. How's a sustainability policy for traveling to customer sites? I could say when you return to work, but some of you have already returned to work and you're wearing masks. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that feels like. So what would a policy look like as to when somebody goes back to work and COVID is still out there? They're saying that even if they get the vaccine, there's going to have to get at least 50% of the whole world to actually accept vaccination. They have to meet a certain quorum, or else there's going to still be this repeated contamination. So, don't know what you feel about vaccinations, and I prefer not to share my ideas about it here. But it's important to understand that people need to start to get more educated about vaccinations and then make educated choices. One of those educated choices would be to try to see if you need to trust your medical provider. How can you get the accurate information so that you can feel like they're not setting you up for some kind of an experiment? So, Agnes, what are people saying about a sustainability policy? Are they saying, just give me some ideas, and when do you think something can be accomplished? And we're looking not only at these areas, reducing carbon footprints, decreasing waste, using less energy, okay? Set some performance indicators, having some environmentally friendly practices. There's many companies in Massachusetts now that have a whole system set up in the cafeteria, splitting out all of the waste that they have from the lunch and evening dining. So, even something as simple as that. Commitment to standards. Agnes, any comments?
Yeah, there's actually quite a lot of comments here. Karen earlier was asking is it true that there's people moving away from the cities because of COVID? And then there's also a comment about the new way of working, i.e. virtual, is driving a change for people to move away from cities, which is, I guess, exactly what Karen is asking about earlier. There was a comment how valuable water is than oil, and this is coming from Ellen Cohen, and there is no substitute for it.
Okay, I didn't catch the last one, but I caught the first two. So I didn't read an article I have not gotten, because I know you guys like stats and you like exact numbers and the dates and the publication. I don't have that, but I can research it for you. Yeah, but what I'm seeing is that there was a move for people to be in the city. So in Boston, a lot of the younger generations that making 2 and 3K, 200,000, 300,000 area salaries with husband and wife together, that they are looking to live, because who can afford $4,000 a month a condo or something like that, So the bottom line is that they are living down there for that reason. But when COVID happened, people migrated to like where I live, which is like an hour and a half drive into Boston. So if I go out in the morning, I have a training in Boston, I'm like, where are these cars coming from? They're coming from either parts of Connecticut and heading towards Boston to get into work. So there is a migration of people willing to live more where they can control their food, so they can grow their own food and have cattle and chicken. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with out here in Massachusetts. And being safer, from being in the city. But that's also because of also the predicted floods that will be happening at coastal areas with the climate warming and polar ice caps melting. They're expecting, like in 100, we're not going to be here, but we should still talk about it, that they're expecting floods of great magnitude. What was that last question, Agnes? Something about oil.
It wasn't a question, but rather a comment that water is much more important than oil. And there
Yeah.
is no substitute for water.
Well, sometimes what happens is when things happen in other parts of the world, Africa feels it really bad. And South Africa actually had a point I think it's last April of 2020, when they actually had water shortages and people had to go online to get water. So and they didn't have a ban, but they were actually saying that, if you go to South Africa, that there would be some issues about getting water, and people were concerned about traveling to South Africa. So, the areas in the world are starting to see the drought. And so that's a concern. And here we live in developed nations. We figure that could never happen. But even not getting things when you want it, we've experienced that now with COVID. You go to the store and you want a Lysol can, and there's no Lysol. You're like, where's the Lysol? We're used to just snapping our fingers and getting something, or go on Amazon and order it. Now we're realizing sometimes you have to wait and plan for it and get it and hoard it, like squirrels hoarding nuts in the fall to make it through the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments on the sustainability plan?
There's a comment from Susan. She said, when you build a sustainability plan like this, you need to deal with conflicting valid ideas, such as cleaning workstations daily to keep staff versus incredible amounts of chemicals being used and generating more trash. This could probably be the most complicated part. And while I have you here, Elaine, you have 3 more slides to go through. I see that. Wanted to ping you. We have about five minutes.
Not a problem. Okay, thank you. So what I suggest that you guys do, I'm not asking you to create a sustainability plan so that I can go and run off with it, but you all of us and our families and extended families and friends need to, and I hope you guys are going to chat about this on LinkedIn, that you're going to go on Facebook and talk about, you got a good talking to about sustainability, but this is important. Yeah, there are a lot of people saying it doesn't matter. Sort of look at other things that they say don't matter. When people say it really doesn't matter, there are other things that are critical in life that they also turn their head or turn their back to. And if we're going to do the right thing, it's really about ethics. If you don't have a gut feeling when you saw those kids in the water, I mean, that for me, I felt it. They're not my kids, but I felt it because, they're, number one, they're going to be sick, and they're going to maybe get tetanus or other things because of being in that water, dirty cans, rotten, rusted cans, cutting them. Mandatory vaccinations. Any thoughts on mandatory vaccinations? I know you said I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to work it as hard as I can. Mandatory vaccinations, any comments? I've had medical professionals tell me that if I did not get vaccinated, they would not be treating me. Well, I was supposed to go to medical school anyway, so I guess I'll be my own doctor.
According to Ellen, they are important for herd immunity.
Yeah. I agree. Some are important. I agree. So that will be another presentation. Yeah, they are important. But I think that it's important that we be given all of the information we need so we know that what we're taking is safe.
Or actually be given the choice if we want it or not.
Yes, but if your doctor says he's not going to treat you, I think it's better you ditch him, give him a Dear John letter early than rather him give you the Dear Jane letter. So the call to action really is for you to start thinking as a business owner. All right, take responsibility for your staff. Take responsibility for the things that you measure and the things that you see as goals. because you really want to make sure that the planet is here for now and for years, hundreds and hundreds of years ahead. And so here are some great resources from Rich Malson. I know some of you may know him. He's here in Massachusetts. An awesome project management buddy. And we have some opportunities for you either to take training with us or to take the certification in green project management, which is called the GPMB. That's the level at which I am right now. And also we have a book club. So that is it for my presentation. I don't know if we have time for questions, but it has certainly been a pleasure. And I'm Elaine Jackson here in Massachusetts, your holistic project manager. Thank you.